So please sit back and enjoy as I show you what independence looks like from our perspective over the last 25 years, starting with our first homestead on Mudge Island on the west coast of Canada, and how 25 years later we've started out yet again on the east coast of Canada, building a homestead from scratch. 25 years ago, Mrs. Rover and I purchased 3/4 of an acre on Mudge Island on Canada's west coast, about 150 miles northwest of Seattle, Washington. It was here that we built a 16 by 24 foot cabin, a cabin that we would live in for the next 7 years. And during that time, this cabin was totally off-grid. For light, we used kerosene lanterns. For entertainment, we had a radio with dry cells. For water, we collected rainwater, filtered and stored it for domestic use. Away from the prying eyes of government inspectors, we were free to do such things as develop a greywater pond. This pond, which we introduced fish to, was a great habitat not just for the fish but also for birds and reptiles. The main purpose of the pond, however, was to give us water so we could use it on our garden and orchard with its apples, plums, and pears. We also created our own rainwater catchment system in these big black cisterns that you see. Here we were able to collect enough rainwater during the wet period to see us through the dry period, to see us through, that is, for our domestic needs. We spent 7 blissful years on this homestead, but we had to move because we just felt we couldn't be food self-sufficient here. Our next homestead took us a little farther north to Powell River on Canada's west coast. Here we were able to purchase an abandoned building lot. After removing tons of garbage, I was able to build a modest 3-bedroom home. After completion of the home, I refocused my attention on building a garden on what was almost pure sand. We collected all the organic matter we could from nearby restaurants, grocery stores, and farms, and built the soil into a wonderful and productive vegetable garden, complete with nut trees, fruit trees, and a berry patch. But after only 3 years, we wanted more self-sufficiency. We wanted the freedom to raise livestock. Again, we were looking for a place that we could expand our ambitions of being more independent, more self-sufficient. Acreage on the west coast is not only difficult to find, but too expensive for us to even contemplate. Hence the reason we decided to up pegs and move across the country to the East Coast. We established our third homestead on the island province of Prince Edward Island on the east coast of Canada, which is about 150 miles northeast of the state of Maine. Here we were able to purchase 25 acres of property for a very modest sum. The property had 10 acres of woodlot and 15 acres of pasture, so we set up our tent and then we prepared ourselves to start building almost immediately. First, we built the mini barn, and when it had a roof, we moved in while we built our house. This first season was all about building and getting our bearings. After a restful winter, full of dreams and planning, spring arrives, and with it, the earth comes alive, and we receive our first livestock, goslings and ducklings. We also enjoy an immensely productive garden. All is good. That's when we had our first real Atlantic winter. After what was just an incredible winter, we expanded our ambitions with the arrival of Bossy, our heritage shorthorn dairy cow, and of course some beautiful orphan calves. After feeding the calves, there was still a lot of milk left over, so we made cheese with our homemade cheese press. We also produced the most beautiful, rich yellow butter that you could imagine. And the calves, well, they just kept growing. But they would need shelter for the winter, so I started building a 32-foot by 40-foot barn. By the time winter arrived, the barn was complete and the hay mow was full. Winter is a great time to bond with your animals, brushing them and giving them extra care. Then one morning, in late winter, Bossy gave birth to Daisy, a purebred heifer calf, the first of many calves that would be born on our homestead. After another restful winter, it was time to dust off my carpentry tools and build. This time, a workshop for carpentry projects, and machine maintenance. This is also the year that we went all in to make our own hay, largely by hand. This is also the year that we butchered our first steer on the property. The cycle of life continued, with more calves born every year. So in a future video, I'll describe the pros and cons of each of the previous homesteads that we just viewed, and why Mrs. Rover and I, in our late 50s, are starting all over again from scratch on the east coast of Canada, on Canada's smallest province, Prince Edward Island.